Hi, everyone,
Hi.
and welcome. And Key, it is so awesome to be chatting to you today. Usually, I'm on
Thanks.
the
I'm excited.
on the side of being interviewed, and this time
Yeah.
I ask you all the questions. So, yeah, just to introduce myself, Kerri, I'm the founder of Kiko Vitals. I'm also an integrative hormone health coach. And Kiko Vitals, if you are new here, is a leading wellness brand in South Africa. We focus on all things gut health and hormones. And we are chatting to our very own in-house head of integrative health, Kiara, Kiko.
Kiko. Similar.
Key, do you want to maybe do a little intro on yourself, a bit about
Yes,
your background?
I'll definitely do so. We have a lot of K's in the house, so it's Kiko, Kerri, Kiara, so might be confusing. But yeah, my background is naturopathy, and no one really knows what that is, but it's actually just natural medicine when you talk about it simply. And then also health coaching, where I dealt with a lot of women and women's health. And then I found Kiko on my journey, where I'm very passionate about the products from that side of like the naturopathy aspect, where everything is holistic and our products are also designed in that way. And yeah, I'm proud to be the head of integrative health now.
Amazing. It's so excited to have you here. I mean, we've spoken to so many thousands of women on the back end of Kiko, and I think finally just bringing it to the forefront is just such an opportunity to really touch on some of those questions and share your amazing knowledge.
Yeah, and
So,
education is so important. Like education is such a passion of mine. So I'm excited that we can now finally do this and educate and yeah, just chat more closely with our community.
I absolutely agree. So I'm thinking we need to go back to the basics, kind of strip it down to just starting, what exactly is hormones?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do think it's a great place to start because hormone health and hormone imbalance have become so popular, but a lot of people don't understand what hormones are, what hormone imbalances are. So when you look at it from like an anatomy perspective, but like using simple terms, hormones are messengers and they basically tell your body what to do and they work in many different systems. So you get different kinds of hormones and you have loads. You don't just have your estrogen, your progesterone, testosterone. You have many others that work in your thyroid and work in metabolism, but we're focusing on women's hormones, which is mainly your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And there's also the misconception that, like the testosterone, for example, is a male hormone. It's more abundant in males, but it's not a male hormone. So it's important to also note that we have the same hormones, but in different quantities. But essentially, your hormones control almost every system in your body. And that's why symptoms are also so widespread because it controls everything from your period regulation to your metabolism and weight management to your hair and your skin health, your gut health. So when your one hormone is like out of balance, it also affects the others and how they can work. So that is simply put what hormones are, but they essentially control everything.
And are quite a
Yeah,
complex system. And I think that's where there's a
yeah,
lot of misconception is that a lot of women may think or hear that they have maybe a dominant hormone and think that it's quite a
yes,
one-dimensional approach. Um, but what it really is quite a domino effect and quite,
yeah.
as you said, like harmonizing the whole system.
Yeah, and your body is always striving for balance. So it's not just that maybe you know that okay, I have very high estrogen, but the question is in relation to what? Like you need to look at the estrogen in relation to the other hormones as well, because it might not even be that high if you look at the relationships with other hormones. But yeah, so it can get very complex, but it's a very important thing to understand.
I love that answer. So when we were doing our marketing strategies, we were playing around with ChatGPT, and I also just said simply, what are hormones? And it said it controls absolutely everything,
Yeah.
basically.
It definitely does. It does. And we tend to think about it like, I think the term, what is the term? Like hormonal and that kind of thing you tend to think about one or two hormones, but there's so many, and they each of them have such a like intricate role. So yeah, it's definitely like misunderstood.
Definitely. So what would you say, in your opinion, or not even an opinion, just generally speaking, how would one, if they haven't done their blood work on hormones and haven't understood fully what their system is, but may want to know if they have imbalanced hormones, what are some of the ways that someone can actually identify if their hormones are out of balance or if there are hormonal imbalances? Are there any particular signs or symptoms that a woman can look out for that could give an indication to imbalanced hormones? Or do you have to rely on blood work and data and going through the lengthy process of obviously, working with the doctor alongside with this?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that blood work has a time and a space, but sometimes it's just like a part of the picture. It's not displaying everything. And a lot of the times, the correct things aren't really tested for. So, even before you get to that, it's important to understand your own body and understand what symptoms are. So, symptoms are your body's way of telling you, hey, something deeper is brewing, something deeper is going on, there's some kind of imbalance. And then it presents you with these signs externally so you can do something about it. So, what we commonly see with hormone imbalances is hair loss. You can have very dry skin. You might have troubles losing weight. So maybe you've been trying for such a long time and it's just not happening. Hair growth underneath your chin, acne breakouts. And then you get the conditions like PCOS, endometriosis, which more and more women are actually now starting to speak about. PMS. And again, all of these things are very common, but it's not actually normal. Even PMS, like you shouldn't have really bad period pain just before your period or in that first 2 days. It's really not normal. And you would notice a massive difference once you start balancing your hormones. You wouldn't even know that your period is coming. Well, you would if you track it, which you should, but you shouldn't have symptoms. The same with if you're in perimenopause or menopause, you would have your hot flashes, night sweats. Those are all symptoms. Even very low mood or depression is another very common symptom. So there's loads of different symptoms because it flows over into so many aspects of your health. I don't know if you have any more that you can add there, Care, but that's just the ones on
Yeah,
the top of my
I
head.
mean, you really have hit the nail on the head there. I think there's so many indicators that provide us with basically messengers
Mm,
within our body before having to go down the rabbit hole of blood testing because your labs and your panel is so extensive that it's quite difficult to know where to start. But
yes.
the first signs that you would see within your body would typically be things like a very unusual extreme condition. So if you are
Mm,
extremely fatigued for no apparent reason, or like you say, hair loss, that's not normal. PMS, PMDD,
yeah.
even missing periods is a great indication that your hormones
Mm,
are out of balance if you are still in your reproductive years. Extremely heavy periods is also another indication.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think just understanding that when your body presents itself with sort of uncomfortable signs to
Mm.
look at it as a potential hormonal imbalance, I think that would be a great indicator.
Yeah, and the like you mentioned the heaviness of your period, but also like your period irregularities, that's a very common one as well. And even fertility, although fertility has so many other components, hormone balance could be one. So many different things, but those are the most common ones. And unfortunately, over 90% of women have actually suffered from these things at a stage in their life. So it's pretty common. You would have, if you're in the school, you might have one or two of these symptoms.
Definitely. I know when we look at the statistics and the data, it's quite frightening. And obviously, that is one of the reasons why we started Kiko, right? Is because we started understanding that 1 in 10 women were suffering from PCOS or being
Mm,
diagnosed with PCOS. The statistics percentage-wise are so high with women that are struggling with PMS, irregular periods.
yeah.
Obviously, a lot of women are put on the pill from a young age. and we're definitely seeing a post-pill kind of
Yeah,
pandemic in
turmoil.
a way.
Definitely. I would say that's, yeah, after the pill, even after giving birth, it's common for your
Yeah.
hormones to like be a little imbalanced. But especially after the pill, I mean, that can last for years, and the education around that is also there's not enough. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. I think women were only legally allowed to start participating in medical research or clinical studies from 1993. So a lot of the information that we are working with, especially textbook, was based on the male anatomy. And
yeah,
so, of course, there would be no known cure for a lot of these conditions. But now that we are starting to get into a place in society and with information and data and this acceleration of information, we are starting to understand and identify more about these conditions, these symptoms, and not only what causes them, but also how to manage them and heal them.
yeah. No, definitely. There's definitely a change. It's the like anatomy part and what was studied, but it's also, I think in America, about 1% of the research budget goes to women's health. It's slowly starting to change, but that's scary because not enough has been done. And I mean, we deal with these women every day, you know, the stories that we get. Um, and sometimes they feel like that there's no solution, or they just don't feel that there's someone that they could talk to. So yeah, I'm glad that
And
we can create this space.
I know it's so nice, and I think this is also where this conversation comes into play is just being able to open up this platform to more women that might have questions or might not know where to turn or just needing a safe place to just kind of regroup with other like-minded women. What we've obviously found with Kiko on the back end is that once, someone's reached out to us, they start feeling so much more seen and heard, just in the sense that they're not alone on this journey and more familiar with the fact that so many other women are struggling with what they're struggling with.
Yeah,
So I really hope that this does become more of a platform for just people to come together and to learn, educate, share, evolve, and the outcome of this all is to find their happiest, healthier self.
yeah, no, definitely.
So maybe you can share a little bit about some ideas around how someone can naturally balance their hormones.
Yeah, that's the like next question, I guess, that would follow is now you know what hormones are, you know what hormone imbalances are and symptoms, but now how do you balance them? And I'm not just going to talk about supplements, but supplements has become increasingly important because of the modern toxic environments we're actually living in. And there's just some things that we can't escape. There's chemicals in everything. Everything is processed. We're exposed to a lot of stress, even like subconscious stress. So that's where Kiko Vitals would come in. So that's the one aspect is supplements and what's in those supplements, which we'll get to. Another aspect is understanding your cycle and cycle syncing, but even before that, just becoming more aware of your cycle. So tracking your cycle from day one and doing so for a month or two or three, and tracking your symptoms. So getting to know when you're experiencing certain symptoms, how long your cycle is, if it's regular, irregular, and kind of like also finding your normal. I think that's very important to start off with. And then from there, understanding what cycle syncing is. So, understanding the different phases of your cycle. So, your menstrual phase, ovulatory phase, follicular phase, understanding the 4 phases, because that will help you align with your cycle and nourish your body in the right ways, move in a way that supports your cycle. So I think that's really important. Managing stress has become increasingly important, and that's also why we have the ashwagandha as one of the main ingredients in our hormone balance and menopause balance. Ashwagandha is known, it's a herb, it's known as an adaptogen, so it helps your body cope better with stress. You can also help your body cope better with stress by doing breath work, journaling, maybe gentle yoga. So it depends on you, but stress can really disrupt your hormones. there's so many things, and it can get quite overwhelming. So I think it's important to see what little things you can start doing, because we also have so many chemicals in our skincare products and the perfumes we use, the household cleaning products we use. So it can be overwhelming to eliminate all of those, but making small changes towards like clean beauty or maybe organic or fresh produce, so those kind of things. Nutrition is critical. So getting the right nutritious foods that provide your body with the vitamins and the minerals it needs to actually maintain balance. So that's really important. Yeah, what else? There's so
I
many things
love
you
these
could
answers. I
do.
love that there are so many ways that we can even just start or almost immediately and implement even for free. Just in terms of how we can make some small little lifestyle adjustments that do play a role in balancing our hormones. So maybe we can chat about just some of those little things. I know on my side, my little go-tos are like just creating rituals in the morning, that first bit of sunlight or sunshine. I really try and choose products. I'm actually very good with this, is choosing products that don't have chemicals in them just because of those endocrine disrupting elements. So I usually cut that out of not just the stuff I use on my skin, but even our like laundry detergents,
Mm.
what we put in our dishwasher, what we clean our couch and our floor with. I really try and look for products that don't have these chemicals in them.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, just always relying on those key pillars of just nourishment, nutrients, and exercise. And even if it's just
yeah,
really light movements, I wouldn't say I'm big into exercise, but I know what it does for me, even going for a half an hour walk,
yeah.
just in terms of my endorphins, my serotonin, just really helping my hormones recalibrate, a little bit of lymph flow, etc. So
Yeah. And an
glad that
important one as well that just came to
one.
mind is gut
Yeah,
health. So your gut and your hormones are linked. So whenever you support your gut, again with nourishing foods and managing stress levels and probiotic rich foods, fiber, probiotics themselves, you also support your hormone health. So that's another important aspect.
totally. So it's so nice to be able to turn to, just basic lifestyle tweaks, I would
Yeah.
say, that could play a role. And then, of course, just tapping into those nutrients and that nourishment. Again, maybe you can expand on that a bit because I think that ideally, what we would be able to essentially do is access a lot of these vitamins and minerals and nutrients to our food, but not in today's world with the depletion of, this rich soil and not having access to always organic, fresh, or really good quality products. I don't think that we are getting enough of that. And obviously, again, like you say, with the stress factors, I think it also depletes our nutrients at a faster pace than of what we're absorbing them. So maybe you can expand a little bit more on, maybe micronutrients, and why they are so powerful in that way.
Yeah, and I think another big thing to just mention that depletes your body of nutrients is your birth control medications and other medications, which a lot of people are on. It usually depletes your B vitamins. So that's why it's so important to replenish your B vitamins. And then also balancing your gut bacteria, because that's what's going to help absorb these essential nutrients. So your B vitamins are really important for women's health and for hormone balance. So we also do have that in our supplements, but they're critical for not only the hormonal aspect but also for brain health and your energy levels. Your zinc, your magnesium, and magnesium is great to also help you with sleep and your sleeping patterns, again also stress management. So those are two really important minerals. Nice.
Talking
And
about minerals.
yeah, you have your electrolytes. That's exciting. I actually drank mine last night. Well, I shouldn't. Yeah, I drank it last night because I did like a hot bar class, and they are amazing. Hydration is super important for
Me
hormone health
so
as
much.
well.
I find if I don't have my minerals every day, I am one of those people that really struggle with fatigue and that afternoon
Yeah.
slump.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is always my little, I've got my glass of water here. I've already poured it out into
Yeah.
this.
Enjoy.
But
But yeah,
yeah, the minerals are beautiful.
minerals,
The
healthy
herb,
fats. Yeah, the herbs. So if we talk about healthy fats, so healthy fats are great for your hormones. They're great for reducing inflammation. So vitamin E is also in our products, but it's also important to include that in your diet, or via, yeah, just whichever form you can. Um, and then hydration, like you just showed us, is vital and kind of forms part of nutrition. So yeah, all of those vitamins and minerals are important, and that's why it's important for us to focus on like whole foods, getting as much whole foods in as possible, because they usually contain that. But as we've just spoken about, the soil is depleted, you're not necessarily getting it. So that's why supplementation again is becoming more and more important in our modern environments. We're not
yes,
getting we're not getting to absorb those nutrients.
definitely. And I think just to touch on one of the questions we often get on our particular hormone balance product, is just trying to understand the complexity of how that was formulated. And it has really been, just taking everything you've said already about what are hormones, how dynamic they are and complex they are, how they work in harmony, but also as a domino effect. And then looking at the nutrients, the micronutrients
Mm,
in that therapeutic dosage, which is so
yeah,
important.
it is.
It's where that science comes into, how we've developed this product to help balance those hormones.
Yeah. And again, it like the whole holistic aspect is really important because there's a lot of herbs in this formula which are all very nourishing. So they do work on the symptoms, but they actually treat the root cause because they are so nourishing. They contain your essential vitamins and minerals specifically for female health. And also you need to understand the interactions between those herbs and vitamins and minerals. So we've really carefully like formulated this. And a lot of the times you would also, especially if you may be newly diagnosed with PCOS or endometriosis, it can be so overwhelming when you start Googling and it shows you this whole list of supplements you need to
Dr.
take.
Google.
Yeah,
You want to
Dr.
stay away from
Google.
Dr. Google.
Yeah, so we've really combine the essential ones in a supplement that works on treating the actual root cause because your body can achieve balance naturally. You just need to support it in doing so. And that's what hormone balance does.
Absolutely. I almost see it as like putting the fairy wheels onto your hormones,
Yeah.
just to give them a bit of support. And then once it starts getting going, you can kind of take those fairy wheels off and
Yeah.
it works a bit more in harmony. And of course, life
Mhm.
is not linear. There's things that happen along the way, or you end up have, after holiday in December, you drink a little more, eat a little more, and need a bit of a reset. It all depends on where you are with those symptoms and conditions and how severe they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really helps just to, cycle or add that nutritional support into your wellness regime.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's also important to just understand maybe we've discussed the symptoms of hormone imbalances, but like the opposite of that, if your hormones are balanced, you should have period like PMS free periods. You should be relatively energized. I mean, it might differ depending on the sleep you got that night, but generally speaking, you should have a good amount of energy. You should not suffer with any of these extremes. So yeah, it depends on the day, but you should not be
Love that
dealing with
actually.
extremes.
Maybe, yeah, like what is the optimum hormone, like balanced hormones look like?
Yeah, you should be mentally like clear, be able to deal with your emotions in a good way. So it shouldn't like affect you too much. Calm and clear-headed, I think that's the word.
Yeah, because brain fog is
Regular
obviously a
cycles.
very
Yeah.
clear uh, imbalance. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's an important one that we didn't mention first, but that's very common is brain fog and not being able to think clearly.
definitely. And you touched on cycle syncing a bit, and I know that this is something that is super interesting. It's sort of a bit of a buzzword, but not everyone knows exactly what cycle syncing is and how this can be applied to, a woman's life or where to even start. Can you give us a little like 101 on what cycle syncing is?
Yeah, I will. And I'm pretty sure after this call, we might be sharing a cycle syncing guide as well, which will go into more depth. But essentially, cycle syncing refers to the cycles of your menstrual cycle. So it can be split into four. And your hormones shift on a daily basis, but it's important to understand that in the context of the month. So even like between these four stages of your cycle, your hormones are either like estrogen might be higher or lower, and then you could support your body with different things. So you get your menstrual phase first, which is usually the first few days of your period, and then it's your follicular phase, and then ovulatory, and then luteal. So those are the four phases. And then you can cycle sync from there when you understand your phases, but also by first learning to track your cycle. But essentially, your hormones spike and dip in these phases, and sometimes your body needs gentler movement. Maybe it needs more nourishment. Maybe it's more tolerant of stress or more intolerant of stress. Sometimes you need
At
more
what phase
community.
would you say that you need the more gentler?
So generally, it depends. It can depend slightly from person to person, but I would definitely say in your menstrual phase and then also your luteal phase, so the first and the last, you're looking more for your gentler movements and also nourishing, especially in your luteal just before you're going to get your period again. Then you really want to be careful also with when it comes to nutrition to stay away from too many like stimulants, for example, like your caffeine or alcohol, or just knowing when and how to take them. Yeah, and then there's in your follicular phase, you tend to have more energy and you can do harder exercises. So, yeah, it's important to firstly understand your cycle, and then you can look into how you can sync with your cycle and live optimally throughout your cycle without these symptoms popping up. Because if you're going to
Absolutely.
push it really hard in your luteal phase, then you might end up getting some like PMS symptoms, for example.
Well, I think that is something that we see with a lot of women that do HIIT training or really intense exercise, is that they are quite a few days within your cycle that's absolutely fine. But generally during your luteal phase, it's not ideal. And what we do see with athletes is that they sometimes experience then missing or irregular periods. And it's just as simple as slowing down in that luteal
Mm.
phase. And also making sure you sort of, having your breakfast in the morning, not skipping meals. Your fasting is more for your follicular ovulatory,
Yeah, definitely.
then that
More
luteal, you
resilient.
really exactly you can be a bit more crazy and a bit more active in those first two stages, and then I think that luteal is really where that little window period is to optimize your cycle,
Yeah.
because maybe you can chat about what is happening with the hormones during that phase.
Yeah, so luteal phase also your body is preparing again for your period. So again, time to really like slow down and connect. And I think it's important to also see your hormones in relation to the other hormones, which is also again displayed really nicely. I wish I could like show you a graph, but I think it's really explained nicely in the guide as well. Um,
Definitely.
but yeah, as your estrogen, for example, drops, you might not be as resilient. So different hormones have different functions, and they tend to make us feel like more energized or just, yeah, what's the other word? Like more tired on the other hand. But it's about the small things you can do again, because in our environments and our modern lifestyle, I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice, maybe in the work aspect, where you still have to go to work every day. Maybe you have a very high stress job, but you can still manage other aspects like your nutrition or just knowing what your limit is for the day and like setting boundaries. So I think that's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to perfect absolutely everything, but rather just looking at how you can optimize or tweak things.
Yeah.
Um, I always know that, especially for the women that struggle specifically with PMDD
Mm.
or PMS, is generally because of that imbalance around that luteal phase. And
Yeah.
um, I know there's always this play with cortisol and
Yeah.
progesterone. And cortisol can sometimes steal progesterone, and
Yeah.
cortisol's been really amplified when there is a bit more of a high stress environment, or you exercising really hard, or you are yeah, maybe not nourishing. And so what happens is that cortisol spike will sometimes
Yeah.
steal progesterone. Whereas
Yeah.
that progesterone is that really nourishing, delicious, like calming hormone that makes you feel so good. And I think that's where that extremity happens on
Yeah.
the emotions and mood. And
Definitely.
PMS, PMD, DD really creeps in on that phase.
Yeah. No, and stress has such a stress and like blood sugar has such a big part in PMS and PMDD because it's very much linked to your cortisol. When your blood sugar is also like all over the place, cortisol pushes your cortisol up, and then on the other hand, your hormones get disrupted. So it's like a domino effect, like you mentioned earlier as well.
I love that. So basically, with cycle syncing, then you could say there's a few pillars that you would sync with your cycle. So one would obviously be tracking your cycle, like you said.
Yeah.
And what would you say is an ideal range in terms of tracking your cycle? Because tracking your cycle is not just your bleed, it's
No.
from the first day of your cycle, right?
Yeah, so start from day one, and then it should usually your cycle length could vary anything from 28 days, which is like the more common cycle length, to like 30, 31. So it's important to understand that first. So from the first bleed to your next bleed, but also noting your symptoms in between, whether it be spotting, whether it be your mood, to note down all of those different things. And it's also then important to understand, like after a month, when you look back, maybe you notice patterns. So maybe you'll see, okay, in my luteal phase, I tend to feel very down, maybe, or it depends on you. But it's important to understand your own body first. So I
Yeah.
would definitely say understanding your cycle, noting down your symptoms, knowing that it's not just your period that's referring to your cycle. Noting down the heaviness of your bleeding, that's another important indicator, the heaviness, but also the color. So that's important to look at. And then from there, the pillars I would say is nutrition, lifestyle, and like stress management, or just how you tend to how you need to like deal with stress in those stages. Um, and then you could even look at that kind of forms part
Exercise.
of exercise, and in nutrition it could really be like small like things you could add to your diet or things
Yeah.
you should rather like avoid during that phase.
Well, I am so excited to get this guide out because I know it's so comprehensive. I have seen the guide and so much work has been put into it, and it was actually written and put together by you. So I
Yeah.
think it's nice to have your background experience and knowledge that has been pulled through that guide. I definitely want to share that with everyone after this interview. And I think we could even do a whole episode on cycle syncing just because
Yeah.
it is so intricate and there's so many beautiful ways that you can track the different phases, understand what your hormones are doing throughout those different phases. Like you say, look at what you can put into your diet or take out during certain phases just to optimize how you feel. And there's this word that I'm sure everyone's heard of is biohacking. And I almost feel like for women, it's more bioharmonizing. When you go into cycle syncing, it's really about cyclical living and learning how to live in your best, most optimum state, which is kind of a biohack. But I just think like hacking just sounds a bit
Yeah.
hard. So I go with the harmonize.
Yeah, no, that sounds better.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to share some of that I'm going to share that guide with everyone after this, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, Keith, thank you so much for just explaining more about hormones and chatting to me about just, where we even start with understanding this whole complex story, because I don't think that we have enough information. We're not taught any of this at school. And I think it's probably because the information hasn't really been there, and now we're starting to get it out.
Yeah.
But
No,
I would
I'm
love
excited to
to,
do so.
yeah, I would love to ask you a few questions from our community. So we
Okay.
did put a question out into our inner circle, and we had some brilliant questions that came back. And I know that a lot of women that joined up for this webinar and that even want to see the recording afterwards had some questions. So there are a ton of questions. I'm going to try and find just maybe a few we can touch on.
Great. That sounds great.
And then hopefully we can do more of these. I would love to do these weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever we can to try and get as much information to our beautiful community as we possibly can. So I think I'm going to start with this question over here. Someone says, I am currently going through menopause. I've been taking menopause balance, and they have been told that they have uh, estrogen imbalance, um, but they do not want to go on HRT. Can you speak a bit more about menopause balance, HRT? Is it something that women can take together? Do they take it apart? Is it a first place to go to? Um, can you
Yeah,
avoid
I can definitely.
HRT?
Yeah, I would say this is a great scenario because in this case, they are still like, they haven't decided yet. And it's great that they are looking at a natural alternative, and menopause balance 100% is a natural alternative to HRT. So you can definitely use it instead if you're looking for a natural solution. But I think for those who are already on HRT or maybe are on progesterone medications or creams, it's also important to note that you can use menopause balance with those progesterone medications. And yeah, you can always decide if HRT is something you want to wean off of. You can do so in conjunction with your practitioner. But yeah, menopause balance is very comprehensive. It will definitely focus on estrogen, but not only estrogen. It's also going to work on your other hormones that are important, like your progesterone and testosterone. And usually you would see a drop in estrogen as you come closer to menopause, but it also tends to be like all over the place in that perimenopause stage. And unfortunately, almost all of these endocrine disrupting chemicals that we've mentioned, they actually up your estrogen, but not in a good way. So menopause balance works in conjunction with your body throughout your hormone fluctuations and supports your body as you go through perimenopause, menopause. So it's a great formula. It's a great solution, great natural alternative to HRT, which has a lot of side effects and can deplete your body of certain nutrients.
Beautiful answer. I always have like a food first philosophy, just turning to my natural options and seeing how one can feel. And you're always going to have long-term benefits when you do something the
Mm,
natural way.
yeah.
But then again, we do have women that do both and they do it with the
Mm,
guidance of a practitioner. I don't think HRT should be something that you look at to stay on forever. So it should
mm.
be obviously a protocol.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, so someone is struggling with bloating and also with adult acne, and they think this is obviously a hormonal imbalance. What would you say?
It sounds like a hormonal imbalance. So, bloating is another common symptom of hormone imbalances. And again, there's the connection between your hormones and your gut health. So, I would nourish your gut with something like a probiotic or even the debloating gut glow, which has nourishing herbs and will help with more of the like bloatedness specifically. But in conjunction with that, your long term solution would be something like hormone balance. So, you're balancing your hormones, which will also help with bloatedness and constipation because there's also that link that way. But then hormone balance and pre-pro is probably your optimal solution with debloat when you need it and when you really feel bloated.
I love the debloat supplement because it just works so quickly, and it's
Yeah.
like your best friend that you carry around in your handbag
Yeah.
or at every dinner or lunch that you go to. So for the instant bloat relief, because we all want to be debloated, I love the bloating for that. And I think adult acne is something that we see so often in our community. So many women are struggling with breakouts in adulthood, and the underlying cause is so frequently obviously hormones.
It is, yeah. I forgot to touch on the adult acne part, but it's definitely a strong link with hormonal imbalances. So, yeah, definitely again, hormone balance, but your probiotics would also support that connection.
Definitely. We actually, so many of our questions that came through here are around hormonal acne. So that's, yeah, it's nice that that's answered quite a few questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Someone says here, what is the impact of hormonal imbalance on mental health?
There's also that connection. So not only do you have your gut-brain connection, but there's also a connection between your hormones and your mental health. Not only mental health, but also like brain health. So brain health refers to mental health, mood, cognition, which is like memory, concentration, that kind of thing. So there's definitely that connection. So if your hormones are disrupted, you might experience a lot of symptoms like very low mood. We see a lot of depression as well getting diagnosed, especially during like perimenopause even. So low mood, mood all over the place, struggling to cope with emotions and struggling to deal with those emotions. So that's a very common symptom, and it can be very like I guess lonely, or you might feel like misunderstood. So yeah, mood fluctuations, irritability, even anxiety. So all of those are coupled with your hormones as well. And it also, yeah, like serotonin and those hormones, a big part of them gets manufactured in your gut. So gut health, again, very, very important.
That gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
Um, it's so crazy because so many women are diagnosed with depression and then go down the antidepressant pharmaceutical route, which doesn't always help because I know that then also comes with side effects
Mm.
and is not always then resolved to come back around and realize that in fact they weren't suffering from depression, but rather a hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
And it's quite sad if, someone's gone so far down the rabbit hole to identify that it may have just been rebalancing or recalibrating hormones that would have completely elevated the whole system.
Yeah, and again, the root cause approach comes into play because a lot of the times the medications that we prescribed just cover up a symptom. And then your body's going to like scream in other ways. It's going to try and tell you, hey, like we haven't treated this thing that's happening internally. So a lot of the times these medications just put a plaster on it, and then other things are going to pop up. You're never actually treating the root cause. So you need to
Yeah.
always like ask questions like, why is this happening?
I like that. I like that, it's important to ask the questions.
Yeah.
What is the cause? Where's it coming from? And
Mm.
then looking at your natural alternative options. Um, Not to say that, I think there is always a time and place for Western
Yeah.
medicine. I just think that once you get to that point, if you haven't, you should have already tried everything else.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's
that's your first line. Yeah.
yeah.
No, definitely. I think a lot of the times there's when it comes to natural medicine, there's those extremes like, okay, natural medicine is against conventional medicine, but they've actually, so my background in complementary health sciences and then naturopathy, the complementary health sciences used to be alternative medicine, but they changed it to complementary because it's like it always works in conjunction with conventional. But
I'm
we're
so
hoping to
happy that
change that.
changed.
Yeah, but we're hoping to change that approach, like natural medicine and understanding your body comes first. So you're doing like the least invasive methods that has the least side effects, and then there's a time and place for the rest.
Absolutely. I mean, alternative never made sense to me because it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be the alternative.
Yeah.
And even the complementary, as you say, we're still trying to change because it should really be the first line.
Yeah.
First line
True.
of defense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a good question here, which I can obviously relate to. Hormonal imbalance and menstruation after a miscarriage. Maybe you want to chat a bit about that. I can always expand.
Yeah, I think it would be great if you can expand, because I know your story as well. But after having something like a miscarriage, your hormones can also be all over the place. And not only your hormones, but like mentally, it could affect your mental health again. So it's important to like nourish your body, not only with nutrients, but also with even just community. So nourishing your body in different ways. Supplementation is again an important aspect of that to help your body come to a more normal, quicker, to recover better and quicker. So supplementation is important, nutrition, being gentle on yourself, and then maybe Kay, you can share your journey or
Yeah. I mean, I know I have shared a bit about this, so people are starting to become more aware of what this journey looks like. And now I am 7 months pregnant. I don't know if you can see the belly, but it has been quite a journey getting here because I did have three losses, well, two miscarriages and then the ectopic. And the ectopic pregnancy, I lost my tube. And all of these experiences had such major impacts on my hormones. It was so, what's the word? Maybe it was, I want to almost say like aggressive, but it's not really the word I'm looking for, but it was quite intense.
mm,
And like you say, it's not just the physical, but also the mental, the loss, the mourning. It comes with such an overwhelm of where to even start to try and feel okay or normal again.
mm,
And I think, like you say, um, it's really about tapping into a couple of different areas and just being very gentle with yourself through that process and not putting pressure on yourself on like an end goal of how you should feel and when, but rather just be willing to kind of like walk through it.
mm,
Um, and just really take care of yourself. I think a lot of women I've spoken to start feeling like, why is their body failing or is something wrong? And it starts just feeling, like you say, very lonely and you're not sure where to turn. Um, and I think it's so important just to start somewhere, to be gentle with yourself, to nourish, think about what you're putting into your body and does that feel good? And is it helping you to surround yourself by people that do love and care and can just be gentle with your time and space? It's not easy just to jump back and be social. And then, of course, the support of nutrients. I think hormone balance helped me tremendously just because of the nourishing herbs.
mm,
It helped me with my mental, my emotional, as well as just healing my hormones after going through such a impactful situation.
mm,
So the hormone balance has always been so great for that post-miscarriage hormonal turmoil.
mm,
And it's so crazy because you actually learn after a miscarriage what you're actually going through as postpartum. So I kind of feel like I can relate so much to postpartum, which I think is also quite um, underspoken, like not spoken
mm.
enough about.
Yeah.
And everyone speaks about fertility, pregnancy, and your entire pregnancy journey, and then don't really talk about the postpartum and miscarriage is quite similar to that phase. So I know, uh, and also speaking to other women, that that is such a difficult phase. With post pregnancy blues and your serotonin and your hormones going out of whack and your body recovering so much after what it's gone through, whether you've, carried your baby through or have gone through a miscarriage. Um, it's so wild. It's such a
Mm.
crazy season for a woman. So
Yeah,
I
I
think,
can just
yeah,
imagine. Can't even
nutritional
imagine.
support.
Yeah.
And it's so good that we're having these conversations. I'm happy that that question came up because I know through my experience, I spoke to so many women that had gone through a similar experience and women that I've known for years and years, and I didn't even know they had gone through that. So,
Yeah, it's important to share. And I think what I've like noted as well more on social media is what people are trying to change is I guess usually you would announce your pregnancy at a certain stage, but let's say you had a miscarriage before that, you have
yeah,
like no one to speak to. So it's important to just have your community to be able to actually voice it.
I
I
think
think
that
that's part
happens
of
so
processing.
often.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the miscarriages do happen in that first trimester. A lot of people only tell people or tell their community that they're pregnant sort of that 3 month mark.
Mm.
And if you have experienced loss, it's very difficult to know how to come out and tell people that you've gone through this while they didn't even know you were pregnant
Yeah. No.
anyways. So yeah, that could also be a topic maybe for another episode.
Yeah,
Another
I'm pretty
episode
sure
of
you
our
can go
new
into
podcast.
so much detail. There's so much to
Definitely.
uncover there.
Okay, so let me ask you one or two more questions here. So we've got a lot of questions around endometriosis and PCOS. Maybe we can touch on endo. Someone says that they suffer from endo. They're interested in telling more about what the signs are regarding hormone balance around endo. And is there any ideas on how they can manage endometriosis without having to go on the contraception pill?
Yeah. So with endo, also again, so many women are struggling with it, but not actually speaking about it, or now only starting to speak up about it. And it can be very debilitating. I mean, you can plan your whole life and your weekend activities around your endo and your pain level. And I think one of the most common treatments is either your practitioner telling you to get pregnant, which does not, a lot of women don't want to get pregnant, and it also doesn't solve the issue. It doesn't solve the root cause. And then also the contraceptive. So the contraceptive is not a solution. It actually switches off your body's natural hormone production. And it's commonly seen as something that balances your hormones, but it really doesn't balance your hormones. And then once you come off of it, then you again struggle with the turmoil. So if you are struggling with endo, again, it's multifaceted, but I would definitely, if you're still in that stage of considering the birth control and maybe you don't want to use it, a natural alternative, again, hormone balance. And then I would support it with your gut health and looking at a pre and probiotic. So that's like the ideal approach. And I also have a testimonial from someone just the other day that has seen a massive difference in their endo, and they were about to actually go for their fourth endo surgery and spoke about like lifestyle, nutrition, supplementation, so many different things, and also just beginning to just understand what your hormones are. And then in conjunction with that, they also used hormone balance and the pre and probiotic, and they actually ended up canceling their fourth endo surgery and like said that we changed their life. So, and that's only one story. So it's really, it can feel so big, and it may take a while for your hormones to actually rebalance. It may take one cycle or two cycles or maybe even three. But with this specific person, it actually only took 1 month. And I was like, wow, that's quick.
I remember you sharing that story, and we actually get so many of these beautiful stories that I think are the testament to why we started the brand in the first place and why we're so passionate about what we do, and having these types of conversations because the life-changing stories that we hear every day around endometriosis, PCOS, hormonal acne, irregular periods, post-partum craziness, just everything that you can wildly imagine where women are told there is no cure. You basically are, doomed and you will have to go on the pill and there's no ways you can reverse this. It's just so crazy because we are actually seeing the results and we are seeing women that
Yeah.
are so reversing their
Yeah.
conditions.
And just with these questions that you're also mentioning, you can hear that like your intuition comes through and you are actually the expert of your own body. And you can hear that with just the way that the question is asked. Is like probably internally you actually know that you want to stay away from that. But it's, I think our intuition can get so, what's the word? There's so many things that can like overbear our intuition. Like you almost can't notice your intuition anymore. But it's important to note that you would know your body best.
I love that you recognize that. I never thought about that, but it's so true. It's the way that questions are asked are almost as if we already know that we have the potential within ourselves to heal, yet
Mm.
we just don't know where to start. And I guess it's really difficult because we rely so much on a medical practitioner and we put all our trust in their hands, which is not the wrong thing to do, but
Mm.
it's not the only way out. And there's so many fundamentals to how we can recalibrate our hormones and our bodies and I think maybe in a next session, we can even chat about what symptoms and conditions actually mean because
Yeah.
it's a lifelong disease. It's something that's been classified based on a cluster of symptoms.
Yeah.
And so when you start kind of going through how did that symptom maybe come about, or how can I even start with recognizing one of those symptoms and, maybe changing my diet, my lifestyle, or, cutting things out or adding things in, women will start seeing that that condition itself will start diffusing.
Yeah. But I'm also like just by you mentioning the practitioners aspect now, I'm
Yes.
also like so excited because slowly it is changing. And you know that we work with so many practitioners that are starting to do their research and do courses in like the natural medicine or using that in conjunction with their general medicine or using that as the first line approach. And even like we have a lot of gynaes that do the same thing that recommend our product. So that's really exciting because if you can find that practitioner, then yeah, it's great for women's health.
So true. I mean, we have a board of medical doctors, and not only just a board, but so many of the people that we work with that do work with our products, particularly, are also medical doctors that have gone on to further their studies into being functional, or integrative doctors.
Yeah,
So we are seeing so much more of that, which is so
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, it is.
All about living in alignment with self and nature and just, yeah. It's 100% possible. We have all the answers within.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, amazing. Well, I think that's a good amount of questions for now. I think that was such an awesome chat, and I think sending out the guide to everyone will be so valuable. What I did want to end this off with is offering a few women that have joined this or signed up and may even watch the recording, if we can maybe offer them a complimentary consultation, maybe with Trish.
Yeah,
And I think that would be a really nice offering for women that just don't know where to start. They're feeling completely like they've hit a dead end, and they just want a bit of guidance. Our naturopath is really, really good with helping helping us kind of put a bit of a protocol in place and just really easy, accessible things that you can implement into your life. And even if it is someone that is already taking Kiko, you're also more than welcome to apply for a complimentary consultation. We will cover the costs on our end because ultimately what we want to try to do is just really see more of these life-changing experiences, and really help more women on their journey. So I think we'll probably give out maybe 5 free consultations and take it from there.
and then
Otherwise,
how do
key.
they apply, Kay? If they
Oh
want to, I
yes, how
see
do they
there's someone
apply?
already interested. How do they
Brilliant.
actually do that?
I should actually check if there are any chats that came through. I forgot to check that. So, yeah, so with regarding to the applications on the consultation, we will send an email with an application link, and then we will just ask a little bit about yourself, maybe how old you are, what your symptoms are, what you're struggling with. Just get a bit of insight as to where you are in your journey. And then we would love to offer you a complimentary consultation so that we can really help you get to the next step. I see Bernita said she had a amazing consult with Trish. It was so insightful. I'm so happy that you had that consultation, Bernita. And yeah, Trisha's actually my mom.
Yeah.
This is also where I think a lot of the information that I grew up with, just stems from. But I'm so happy you had that consultation, and I can't wait to actually extend this offer to a few more women. And then Linda says, thank you. That's amazing. Linda, we would love to have you in one of our consultations. So we'll definitely send you a link and you can apply and we can help you take your journey to the next level and find optimum health as a woman in this complex world of hormones and gut health. So, yeah, Key, I think we'll definitely send that link through on an email to everyone. But I just want to thank you again so, so much for having this chat with me and bringing your amazing knowledge to the table and sharing your wisdom with women and just being so passionate about Kiko and everything that you do is amazing. It's changing the world, it's changing one woman's life at a time. And yeah, you're just such a beautiful inspiration to all the women that you are surrounded by and that have the honor of being able to work with you and chat to you every day on these topics. So thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, again, so happy that we can like do it and get to chat to our community and educate. Yeah, and I was also thinking yesterday, like, am I stressed? And then I was thinking, no, but this is what I love. So it's like
We're
it's
good stressed.
exciting. It's exciting to we're changing the world. So
We're
yeah,
not
thank
we're
you
not
so much.
traumatized stressed.
No.
We under pressure stressed, but
Yeah,
we've got a
but
mission
thanks.
here.
Yeah, and thanks
We're on a
for
big
giving me
mission,
the
actually.
platform. We are.